Welcome to episode 51 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co host and backup long snapper Joseph. How's it going, man?
Going good, except feel bad for Drew Brees.
I had to wake you up from your nap there because you were sleeping while watching all the games this weekend. So we're live. That's not a
It
joke.
was.
Actually, that's actually not a joke.
I know you saw my text. I think that was probably the worst divisional weekend ever.
Yeah, the worst I can remember for sure. So we're live. So we're just not doing an episode. So we'll see you guys for episode 52. So we're live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, whether or not the games were good. If you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. You can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. So this week we've got a boring divisional mashups to talk about, future outlooks to discuss. One very fascinating comment that a commentator made, and of course our playoff predictions for the championship week to make. So let's go ahead and dive into our discussion about division games. And I'm not calling it game of the week because there really isn't a game of the week this week per se. More just we're going to
A lot of
talk about
games this
kind of
week.
yeah. There were four games. There were no games this weekend. No, there were four games this weekend, and um, uh, they had their ups and downs. Let's just say that. So let's get into the first one, which was Rams at Packers. So to be fair, this game was relatively close. The throughout the game, the Packers did look kind of better the whole time, but it was 25-18 in the fourth quarter. So you got to factor that in. Um, I think the Rams defense still played fairly well. It wasn't it wasn't the kind of dominance that they put up against the Seahawks, but they played fairly well. I think the issue with the Rams in the last like third of the season and in the playoffs is just that Jared Goff has the finger issue. Their offense just is befuddling for some reason. It reminds me of the Super Bowl actually when they couldn't score
Yeah,
against the Patriots. So I don't know what it is with that, but they kind of their offense shut off, and they were relying too much on their defense. And when you rely too much on your defense and you go up against Mr. MVP, you're probably not going to win. So
count double check.
yeah. Gosh, how many times have I seen that golfing commercial now? I can't wait for the season to be over just for that. So yeah, what do you have any comments on this game? Any things you noted or any weird plays or
Not that I recall.
Equanimous St. Brown caught a ball for 27 yards. Um, yeah, I mean that's like it was a pretty clean game, no picks. Uh, One fumble by Green Bay, but it wasn't lost. So yeah, I don't know. There's not really a whole lot to say about this. I think the Packers are the better team. They're the team that deserve to keep going. So the better team won. That was a 32-18 victory for the Packers. So they're still the number one seed and are going to have home field advantage next week, which, as we know, because of COVID, is meaningless. Um, okay, so the next game on Saturday was Ravens at Bills.
Ooh,
Yeah,
pathetic.
yeah, this one was even less interesting. So
Even though I won that pick, a waste of. I mean, I'll say. I mean, the Bills had no run game. Ravens had a decent run, and Josh Allen did not even play that great. And it basically what won the game was that 101 yard. There was that pick, 101-yard pick six was pretty epic by the Bills. Surprised Jackson couldn't catch him at the end, but that accounted for 7 of their 17 points. Um, yeah, the Ravens only scoring 3 points, embarrassing, embarrassing themselves. And I mean, wow, what does that say for going into next year? You know, um, we legit thought that the last couple of years the Ravens could have been a real contender, and they've shown that they can't be or they're not. So very curious to see what happens next year. Um, I feel like don't know how many years they have left with that great defense, and they're gonna, you know, they're starting to come down from it. So I feel like they haven't left their window, but I feel like that when their window's closing pretty soon. So
Honestly, I think their window is kind of a function of whether or not Jackson can be a more effective passer going forward. Because I think that they, like last year, he put up those ridiculous rushing stats, and he was still like, he was still a decent passer. And then this year, it felt like they relied even more on the run game, which was okay. Okay, I mean, it was good enough to get them to 11-5, but
yeah, well, last
they
year,
don't. They're definitely not in the top tier of teams, though.
yeah, I mean, last year his passing stats were really efficient, um, and definitely the rushing was really good season. This year, the passing was down a little bit, but not bad. His rushing was still really good, but I think it was also their defense wasn't as stout as it was last year. And I mean, last year they had like the greatest run performance by a team in NFL history. It's kind of hard to match that, you know.
Yeah,
So with the defense going down a little bit, Jackson's passing going down a little bit, and their rushing obviously not being the greatest of all time again, that's what happened.
yeah. I
So,
mean,
so
if you
moving
just
moving
real
forward,
quick look at his stats, he had 400 less receiving yards or passing yards. He had 10 less passing touchdowns and 3 more interceptions,
yeah,
and five more fumbles. And then rushing, he had 200 less rushing yards, the same number of touchdowns. So he just was overall kind of regressed a little bit this year. Definitely in the passing game was not as good. So yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be a function of how he can play, and um, their defense is still going to be like a top 8 defense next year, I think.
oh yeah, easily.
And so it just comes down to how he can adapt. But
Yeah, I mean,
I would
but
not consider them, like, even just in the AFC. I would probably put them, I don't know, maybe like fifth best, sixth best.
well, the thing is, if we go back to 17 wasn't from COVID. That was dang it. The 7 teams was like a real thing. That wasn't a COVID thing.
Unfortunately, yes,
Dang it. Um,
because
dude,
they
I
were
hope
they
they
were what, fifth seed or sixth seed?
yeah, they were one of those. That's not good, man, because well, one, that's gonna forever ruin the second seed, right? We already had the discussion. The second seed has just been hurt to get a bye. But um by the way, like, did the math work out? Did 7-3 work? That work?
7-3.
Yeah, 7 teams, 3 buys.
Uh,
I think that worked out,
no,
didn't it?
no, because if you had 7 teams and 3 buys, means that there's 4 teams that play and 2 teams that win. So then you'd have 2 teams that win going up against 3 teams that had a bye.
Dang it. So yeah, you know what? I hope that in coming years they go back to 6-2, but they probably won't. So we're probably stuck at 7-1, which is bad. Anyways, we won't get to that right now. What I'm trying to get at is trying to figure out where the Ravens may be. So yeah, by the way, this is more fun because the games weren't very good. I'd rather kind of quickly go over the games and maybe talk about their future just a little bit before we get to our future, our team's future.
Yeah, I mean, let's
Um,
just keep talking about the Ravens because we're on them.
yeah, so the Ravens makes next year interesting is the Bills have kind of come into their own. Which, by the way, the Bills, I think, just a little. Josh Allen was maybe a little sluggish for his first playoff game. Um, I think he'll come out doing better next game. Not saying they're going to win, but plays or not. But yeah, for the Ravens, I mean, let's look at the teams that are at their level or better. Okay, I would say Steelers are at their level, though they have a big question mark with Big Ben next season. The Browns are almost at their level. Colts are at their level, but Rivers is their decision. I think the Dolphins are at their level. The Bills are ahead of them. The Chiefs are ahead of them. Okay, so that's what, 6 teams, 7 teams, and then you have teams that are on the rise. I would say are the Chargers. I'm not saying they're there yet, but on the rise, the Chargers, and that's probably about it. So, I mean, the Ravens make the playoffs next year. They may be fighting for the 6 or 7 seed, and who knows where Deshaun Watson goes. How that affects things. So
Yeah, I think we could see a pretty close three-way battle for that NFC North, or sorry, NFC. Is it North?
Yeah.
Division.
Title.
Yeah, because I think the Browns are going to hang around. I think the Ravens have kind of come down to their equilibrium, and I think the Steelers will, their record will probably regress a little bit next year. So, yeah, I really think it all comes down to whether Jackson can make their play calling a little bit more varied, because you can't win by just running the ball. And we saw that against the Bills. Okay, so the next game is Browns at Chiefs, and this game was actually fine. All things considered, it was 19-3 at half. KC up, but then that Cleveland scored 2 touchdowns in the second half, and Kansas City only scored 3 points. Now, part of that was because Patrick Mahomes suffered a concussion, and Chad Henne, who I didn't even know was still in the league, had to come in and play for him, and he did not do a good job. So that was the only thing
that he did have that epic run.
He did. Yeah, you have to give him credit that the run that first down run, or it was like almost first down run that.
And he threw he sacrificed his body for the sake of getting the Chiefs to the.
Yeah. Speaking of that run, I tweeted at near the end of that game that I said the end of the Browns Chiefs game was a clinic in bad ball spotting. There were like 4 different times where they just really erroneously spot balls. Fortunately, it didn't really change the outcome of the game because the Chiefs won anyway, but both teams got kind of snubbed by that. So, yeah, the fact that Patrick Mahomes left was the only thing that really gave the Browns hope in this game. Baker Mayfield was okay. He needed to be great to win this game, and he wasn't that. Their run game was fine. It's just they didn't, they're just not as good of a team. And when you got Patrick Mahomes playing decently, if he had actually played the whole game, I think he would have put up some pretty good stats, but he got cut off early. So, yeah. I mean, I think this is, I don't know, maybe this week was just a really solid dose of the better team just won. Like there weren't many. The Bucs Saints game was, I think, the only game where legitimately you weren't really sure which team was better. Whereas in the other 3 games, it was pretty clear which team was better. Right? Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And occasionally you got upsets, but we didn't get upsets this week. The better team played better. So, yeah, I don't think I have a whole lot more to say about this other than if you're a Browns fan, don't be discouraged by this. This is the first time in, 4,000 years you guys have made the playoffs, and you did good getting here. You even won a game last week against the Steelers, so don't give up. I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, and I think beating their rival like that was great. So.
Yeah, and I think whoever their coach is, I forget his name.
Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, I think he's gonna win. Is it Coach of the Year?
Yeah, or Brian Flores of the Dolphins. Too close, man.
Maybe, yeah, that's true. Yeah, with how they did, I could see either one.
Yeah, or the Bills coach. Or
maybe you just give it to the Browns because they've been so bad for so long.
Yeah. Oh man. All right, let's get to our quote unquote game of the week.
Okay, yeah. So the by far and away the most like exciting / interesting game this week was the last game, which was Bucks at Saints. And this game, so I have the box score in front of me. So Joseph, you actually watched. I didn't see any of the first half of this game. You watched the first half.
Yes.
We were talking on the phone, and I think that did Breeze throw? Was it he threw one pick in the first half? Right? Was it pick six?
Yes. I can't remember when the pick six was.
I think it was the first half. So interceptions. Oh wait, no, there was no pick six. It says no touchdowns for Tampa Bay interceptions. Maybe it was just close.
Oh no, that's right. Got out at the 3-yard line, and I think Mike Evans got a touchdown after that. So they scored on the that play, but it wasn't a pick six.
Okay.
Oh
yeah, because Mike Evans has a reception for 3 yards and a touchdown. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, the best play in the first half that really mattered was that trick play by Winston to Smith, the touchdown. So they did the trick play. Winston was a wide receiver. Jameis Winston was a wide receiver, and then they handed the ball off. Oh, who was it? I forgot. And then he kind of pitched it to someone, and then he tossed it to Winston, who then just threw like the most open. I don't think it was super far. I think that was only like a 30, 35-yard throw, maybe. I think I could have made that. Well, maybe not now, but in college days I could eat. So it was just he was just so open. And I read a comment on YouTube. It was hilarious. It was like something along the lines of, Winston, great job, Winston, throwing touchdowns to the Saints like the good old days. Because remember he had like 30 interceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good play. That was basically, that was the best play of the game, and one of probably like the deepest play of the game, like in terms of. Yeah, I don't think the.
Oh,
Bucks
the longest by yards. Yeah, that was the longest by yards.
I think the Bucks had a real big play either. And then yeah, for the second half, Breeze had a good throw to Smith in the corner, good touch. But it was the interceptions. I mean, the Bucks capitalized on those interceptions because Brady wasn't great either.
No,
Breeze was poor, but you could tell. I mean, he hardly threw the ball downfield. At the ends, you could tell they weren't letting him throw. I don't know if he was injured or not or what's going on, but his arm clearly, like he threw some ducks, and you just felt bad. Like it reminded me of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, like 1 year had like the record season year, and like the next year or 2 years later, you can tell Manning can't throw it, and don't know what happened to Drew Brees, but not have the same arm because the Saints could have won. The Saints were in a position many times to win, and I will say this, and this is going to sound controversial, so I'm not putting a judgment behind it. I'm okay with their decision, but I don't think the Saints did everything they could to have won the game. I think they gave Drew Brees an honorable, we're going to let you play. No, you're not our best option. The Saints could have done more with Winston and Hill to win the game. And I think they chose to not and just gave Drew Brees a chance and was going to let him play it out no matter what.
That's yeah, I kind of have to agree with you. I thought that after the second interception, which was the first interception of the second half, that they probably should have just taken Brees out. It was clear he was not throwing well by that point, if not before that point. And yeah, I think that they did not use. Taysom Hill is not on the box score.
Yeah.
So that's not okay. Like that. Yeah.
And regardless of Hill being underused, which we think he is, the fact that he's not even on the box, wasn't injured, that's ridiculous. What's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he was. I don't know the background on that for sure, but yeah, I don't know. It just I kind of agree with you. It did feel like the Saints just fell flat and they didn't make any adjustments. And then the Bucks just capitalized on those turnovers. And I think they scored, what was it, two touchdowns off of turnovers. Um, so
Yeah, I think so.
obviously their offense wasn't really moving the ball either. So I think the interesting thing is I think there's two interesting questions that we can explore real quick. One is, do we think the Bucks have enough to go all the way? And two, what are assuming that Drew Brees retires, which I don't think there's been an official announcement on yet. What do the Saints do with quarterback next year?
So I want to answer the second one first.
Okay.
Um, Unless you object.
No, go for it.
So I would be shocked if Brees doesn't retire. And I think because Taysom Hill expensive to them right now. I think he's like $20 million left or something. Taysom Hill right now is expensive to them, but he's just very special. So it really comes down to, in my opinion, team chemistry. Winston, I think, can be enough of a guy to play. Like he looked like he lost some weight, he toned down. Um, I think he's been humbled by being a most arrogant guy. He wasn't like crazy in that sense, but like wherever he was, he's definitely been humbled by being a backup. I think the Saints have always been a good organization. I think with Sean Payton and Drew Brees there, they've always just fostered good chemistry with players. And so I think that Winston can come in and be sufficiently good. I do believe that. And if they can have good chemistry, yeah, the chemistry argument is use Taysom Hill more often, where he is filling his unique role, but better and more, so that he is worth that money. He can be worth that money if he's used properly. So the question is, do they have that chemistry? They foster it more, where you can almost have two quarterbacks per se, or that Taysom Hill can be more of a playmaker. I think they can. Like I think this is a plausible solution. I just don't know if the Saints are going to want to go that route, or if they know they can do that route. And because if they try to set up Hill versus Winston in terms of like one quarterback, the irony is because I don't think Hill. I mean, he was okay during his quarterback time.
He's not a
But
starting quarterback.
yeah, but I was going to say for a whole season he's not. For a whole season he's not a starting quarterback.
No.
He can do great passing plays. He has a great arm, but he has to be that kind of dynamic, neat guy.
Yeah, he's more of a gadget quarterback.
Yeah, that pairs up with Winston. So if I'm the Saints, I wouldn't be super worried. Because you don't go out and draft. You're not gonna have a good pick. And in fact, I have the first 3 rounds up here for our next segment. So let me just see what are the Saints picks. So the Saints, I mean, they're not in the top 8. That's where I cut off with the Dolphins. So yeah, Saints, they had a good defense, right? And they have offensive playmakers. Michael Thomas is injured though, and has to have surgery. So if I were the Saints, I wouldn't be super worried. You did miss your window a couple years ago, sadly. That stupid missed penalty call against the Vikings. I'm sorry, the Rams. That sent the Rams to the Super Bowl. That'll forever haunt them, and that was just embarrassing by the NFL because that was their year. I'd say go with Winston. That's good. And then keep Taysom Hill, but you better use him more. And I think the Saints could still be a 10-win team with that next year. I really do.
Yeah, the thing is, I worry about. I definitely don't think Hill is a full season starting quarterback, and I don't think Winston is good enough to be a starting quarterback either. So
Really?
the question is, if you basically start Winston and then expect Hill to have 5 or 6 passes a game and a few runs and a couple trick plays if that's just your bread and butter for every game, maybe you can make that work. But I don't see them trying to do that for more than a year.
Yeah, long term it doesn't work.
Um, so then,
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I would just no, no, I agree. I think what you said was last thing was good is that they could do it and it could work, but not for more than a year. So yeah.
Okay, so the second question was, do you think the Bucks have enough to go all the way?
Um, yes. And I remember we said at the beginning of the season, I called them the dark horse team because you just didn't know, like, we imagined they were going to get 9 or 10 wins, but and they did. I looked at their season. It's weird. They didn't really beat anyone good as the Packers, but also Aaron Rodgers had a ridiculously like a career worst year that year, a game that year. Sorry, game. But you look at their losses and like they lost to all the better teams, and then their wins are okay, but they still came out 11-5. Brady had a good season, some inconsistencies, but like when the Bucks are on, I think they're a tier 1 team. They have the weapons. Brady's Brady. He's not as he doesn't have to be
I
prolific,
think we have
but like
Tom
he still
Brady
has that
still
calm
playing
effect,
in an NFC.
and he can come back. I can still trust him. Being down 10 or 14 in the fourth quarter, like I'm not going to count him out. And they have a good defense, right? They do have a good defense. They do. The run game is okay. They have great weapons, and Tom Brady's the guy that you'd want to use them. So we know that because of Tom Brady being older, and not as mobile, and he doesn't like pressure. We saw when the Peyton Manning Denver years, Peyton Manning beat him in the playoffs those years several times because the pressure the Broncos put on Brady. So if a team can put pressure on Brady, it's going to frustrate and make it difficult. But I absolutely do think they have the weapons. Um, this next game, Packers Bucks. I mean, it's harder to get better than that, right? 2 legends, 2 Hall of Famers, one playing at an elite level, another playing at just below elite, but really good. The weather's not going to be a factor unless it's a factor for the other guys. Obviously, Brady doesn't care about the snow. He's done that. But unless the other Tampa guys aren't ready for it, then I'm not super worried for that if it does snow.
Yeah, I can just imagine a meme of like Tom Brady in the pocket, like cool Tom Brady, and then they show the receiver he's throwing to like just a solid block of ice.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing: the Rodgers is better. Offensive weapons, I think, goes to the Bucks, but you have to have the caveat that Rodgers can use them better. Rodgers playing right now. Run game, I'd give the edge to the Packers a little bit. Packers, Aaron Jones had a good year. Defense, though, has to go to the Bucks. And then
Yes.
clutchness, in my opinion, has to be equal. Like Rodgers and Brady are some of the most clutch quarterback of all time, so not even a factor. And then weather and environment, maybe the edge to the Packers because the whole team's used to it. So this, I think, is a more even game. Maybe some might be willing to admit. And I do think that Brady and the Bucks can do this. Now, if they win against the Packers, Patrick Mahomes doesn't play. I think they're going to steamroll the Bills. Experience, defense, they're just going to steamroll the Bills, in my opinion. If Mahomes plays and the Chiefs win, talk about a shootout. And I think that'd be a very close matchup. I don't know why I feel this way, but I think the Chiefs actually have a better chance against the Packers than they do the Bucks. So
I think I could
that's
agree
what,
with that.
yeah. So that's what I'll say. What are your thoughts?
I think I have similar thoughts. I think uh I think if Mahomes doesn't play another game this season, I think the Bucks have a pretty good shot. Um honestly, I think if Mahomes doesn't play, I think the NFC is probably going to take it.
Yes,
Uh
the Bills respected them, but not enough experience, and the other teams are just better
Yes.
or more potential, more experience, more potential.
Yeah, and I think so just I don't know if anybody noticed this because this is one of those things that probably flew under the radar for a lot of people, but Tom Brady had in his 21st season and his first ever season with a team besides the Patriots, and he's how old is he now? 43, 44? He's 43.
43.
He had 4,600 yards, which is the most yards he's had since 2015. He had 40 touchdowns, which is the second most of his career. He's only had 40 or more touchdowns twice. And the last time he did was in 2007 when he had 50.
Loss.
Yeah. And he had easily a like probably top third of his career kind of season this year.
Oh, I looked at it. I did quite extensively, and this was his 4th or 5th best season of his career.
Isn't that just nuts?
No, that is nuts. And to think that, I mean, you get rid of Rodgers having an historic season and Wilson starting off good, even though I think Brady ended better, and Mahomes having a really good season. Like, this is an MVP season in like any other previous year, besides the historic ones.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. Yeah. 4,500 yards and touchdowns. That is, wow. That's great. So to do that with less chemistry on a new team in a new division and to be 43 years old.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's crazy. It's like, when is this guy ever going to stop?
Yeah. And I wonder, what pieces do you think they need to try to go all the way next year in case they don't do it this year? Like, what would they come back next year?
They need to make sure they keep their weapons, and they need corners.
Okay.
I think that's really, and I think they do need to upgrade running back.
Yes, they do.
Those would be the 3 areas that I would focus on.
I'll let you talk next for the Niners. I've done rest here a little bit and get ready. So
let me go. So let me go ahead real quick. So that was our division game talk. So I had one wrecked face, and then we'll get into our what's next segment. Does that work?
Yeah. Oh, and don't forget the commentator.
Oh, I was going to do commentators after, but we can do that first if you want. So, all right. So for the Who Wrecked Face this week, we didn't really pick up anybody on offense, but I had to note one guy on defense. And this isn't just because my heart is soft towards the defensive side of the ball, even though it is. We have to give a shout out to Devin White, who single-handedly ended Drew Brees' career. Devin White had 11 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, an interception, a fumble recovery, and a pass defended. He was all over the field. Number 45 was my player of the game, and I think player of the week this week. Okay, so commentators. So during the Ravens-Bills game, and remember, we've ditched all of the bad or mediocre crews. We're left with just the good crews now for the playoffs. So this is Chris Collinsworth said what I'm about to say. In the Ravens-Bills game, he said, one of the things that's misunderstood about Lamar Jackson is that he really is a pocket passer.
What?
I'm like, the guy that's never thrown a pass from the pocket in his entire career is a pocket passer? I don't know where he's coming from with that. There's no, Jackson is the quintessential not pocket passer in this league, if there is one.
Well, and it's weird because it almost feels a hidden, unjustified criticism of a non-pocket passer. Like last year, He had a great season, and like he can throw the ball. I mean, if the guy rushed for 1,500 yards, did enough to win games, why would there even need to be a criticism that he wasn't a pocket passer? Who cares? Right? He does the job. He does enough to win games and play well. Why does someone have to be a pocket passer? It's just weird that we're even saying that he is one when he clearly isn't, as if there's something wrong if he wasn't one.
Right. Yeah, it was just weird. It was
Who cares
weird.
if he's not one or not? Good. Whatever.
Okay, so let's go ahead and roll into our main segment for the night, which is our What's Next segment. And we're going to focus this segment on our teams, since we really haven't talked about our teams that much this season. For anybody that has tuned in kind of towards the later end of the season and wondering, oh, why the heck aren't you guys talking about the Niners or the Dolphins much? We made a decision at the beginning of this season to cut our 49ers Dolphins game segment from our show so that we could have more emphasis on league-wide, other teams, talk about more kind of NFL general things going on, and a little bit less about our specific team. So that's why you haven't heard us talk much about our teams. But for today, we are going to talk about them because they're not in the playoffs anymore. They're looking forward to next year. There's obvious areas that need to be improved, that need to be looked at, that need to be strategized. So Joseph and I are going to talk about that. So do you want to go first with Dolphins, or do you want me to go first with Niners?
Go ahead. Go first.
Okay. So the Niners are in a fascinating position because they went to a Super Bowl last year, and so they didn't have a great pick going into the draft in 2020. And yet they were still able to, they still actually ended up with 2 first-round picks, and they picked up Brandon Ayuk and Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw was considered to be the overall best defensive tackle in the draft, and then Brandon Ayuk was one of the up there receivers. He was not in the top 3 or 4, like guys like CeeDee Lamb, but he was up there. And so we picked both of them up, and the rest of the draft we pretty much didn't have anybody because we only had 6 picks, which is pretty low. So we had an okay draft, and then this year everybody got hurt. Everybody went to the hospital. So we had a 6-10 season. If we had been healthy, we would have had at least an 11 or 12 win season, and would have meant that another year we would have had a not so great pick. But because we sank so low, we're going to have a pretty decent pick. In fact, we're going to be picking 12th overall. Our position is 12th overall for the 2021 draft. So with that kind of setting the context, there are 5 positions that I've identified as needing upgrades, and then there are a lot of guys, a lot of free agents that are entering free agency in this offseason. So Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are going to have a very busy offseason identifying who they want to keep at what price, and then how they're going to finagle their draft picks to address these needs. Unlike last year, this year we're going to have an abundance of draft picks. In fact, it's expected that we're going to have 10 draft picks this year because we're getting I believe it's a 3rd round pick, compensatory pick for our defensive coordinator being named head coach of the Jets. So we're going to get a compensatory pick for that. And
took all of our picks. We only have like 5 picks this year.
Oh, you guys only have 5 picks?
No, wait. No, I'm sorry. 4. No, we have 7. Sorry. No.
Okay. Well, and 2 of them are first round picks.
Yeah, sorry.
3 and 18. Oh yeah. So I'll start with just going through real quick who the positions are, I feel like, that need upgrades, slash not necessarily that need upgrades, but will need to be addressed because we'll probably lose one or two guys due to free agency. So starting with defense, it's looking very likely that we're going to lose Richard Sherman. He's just going to be too expensive for the amount of cap space we have. We're really up against the limit on cap space. We're probably going to lose either or both of Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt. I'm okay with losing Tartt because he's been off the field as much as he's been on the field because he's been hurt so much. And even though he's a good player, he's not a great player, and we can find someone else to fill that role. Jimmy Ward would be more of a loss, even though he is injury prone when he's healthy, and he actually has been really healthy the last 2 years. He is one of the more versatile, probably top third safeties in the league. And I hope we keep him. I think we should spend money to keep him. Tartt, though, I'd be fine letting go. So I think we have, and then we have on corners, Sherman, Verrett, and Emmanuel Mosley. I don't know if Mosley's up. Verrett's we're gonna keep. Sherman we're probably gonna get rid of, or is gonna sign somewhere else. So we need to draft a safety and a corner. Now here's where it gets complicated. On the D line, which was probably the best D line in the league last year, and by last year I mean 2019. We had Nick Bosa, and we had Dee Ford, who was healthy for most of the season. Dee Ford played like half a game, and then had back problems, and they're saying even now that he might not even be ready for next year. So we need to get rid of him, and I think we need to draft somebody. The issue is, when you try to draft a defensive end, we don't need a Nick Bosa. And we're not going to get a Nick Bosa. But we do need someone maybe more along the lines of like a what would be, I'm trying to think of like a good like a solid 8 to 9 sack guy that stays healthy, that can play a lot of snaps on the end. That kind of guy. We need that kind of guy to replace Dee Ford. So we're not going to get huge sack numbers, but we are going to get a good, solid, healthy player. And unfortunately, you're probably not going to find that much past the first round. Usually the good defensive ends get swallowed up pretty early. Unless you make like a random gem pick, like a Russell Wilson of defensive ends kind of thing. So then the question there is, just looking at it defensively, do you try to draft, because we have a 12th pick in the first round, do you draft a defensive end at that position? Do you draft maybe the best available safety or corner? Do you try to trade down and then maybe pick up the best remaining defensive end at, say, 14 or 15, and then use your extra second round pick, which you probably got by trading down, your 2 second round picks for safety and corner? Maybe you could usually get. The thing is, I don't know how I'm doing this analysis without knowing what positions are going to be full of talent year in, year out. Usually there's at least 1 or 2 positions that have kind of an overabundance of talent. Last year it was wide receiver and corner. I don't know what it's going to be this year. And when you get to your thing on the Dolphins, I guess we can talk about that if you know. But safety and corner, you can probably get a solid pick, high second round. You're not going to get a Jamal Adams, but you can get a solid pick. So it kind of comes down to how they want to play that, but those are the 3 needs on defense. Then on offense, this will be quicker. We need to upgrade O-line, and I don't think it has to be through the draft. I think we could pick someone up, trade for someone, or pick someone up there. I don't want to spend a high first round pick for that for sure. I think we just need because we have both of our tackles. We really need to upgrade the center, and I think we can handle that outside the draft or maybe later in the draft. And then we need to upgrade. Well, not upgrade, but we need to fill out running back because we're probably going to lose Tevin Coleman. We've got Raheem Mostert, we've got Jeff Wilson, but we really need a third guy because those guys both got hurt this year. We really need a third guy that can be a bit more of like a bruiser type back, and I think that might be more of a trade type scenario. I don't think we're necessarily going to want to spend a lot of draft capital on that. So then the only remaining question is what do we do about Jimmy G? And depending on what you think of that, there's going to be two major you have a fork in the road in your analysis. There's either going to be you either go, okay, we're going to keep Jimmy G, then what do you do? Or we're not going to keep Jimmy G, what do you do? I've been operating under the assumption that we're going to keep Jimmy, so that's my analysis. If we decide to draft somebody or trade for somebody, then that totally shuffles my analysis, and we don't have time to go into that. But in short, I think we're going to keep Jimmy, and I think given the options that are available, I think we should. And I'm not thrilled to say that, but I think we should because I don't think there's a clear upgrade outside of Deshaun Watson, who I just ultimately don't think is going to be affordable for the Niners. I think we're going to have to give up too much for him. And I also don't think he'll necessarily see that as the best landing spot for him. So I think they're just stuck in between a rock and a hard place with that, where they can't really upgrade. The only option would be to risk a draft pick on somebody, but they have a 12th pick. They'd have to trade up a lot to get someone that might be good, right? So there's so much risk no matter what they do, either high risk or heavy cost. And so I think they're just going to default back to keeping Jimmy and rolling with him for another year. So that's all I'll say about the Niners, and you can either comment on that if you want or move on to the Dolphins.
Really quick, can you list your top three in order? Three draft needs again? Do you feel?
So the top three draft needs I think we have are not necessarily in order, but safety, corner, and defensive end.
Yeah, so this draft will quarterbacks, receivers, and offensive linemen seem to be more of the trend this year. For at least for like the top 15 picks, right? You know, the flashier picks.
Sorry, what were the positions again?
So there's going to be this is a solid wide receiver at the high end. Maybe not as deep as last year, but at the high end. And then there's a couple of good quarterbacks. Obviously, Lawrence is really good. But we know that there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks. Dude, I mean, looking at the first 12 picks, I intentionally stop at you guys. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's at least 6 teams who could be in a position to draft a quarterback. And I say position, like maybe have the desire or interest. 6 out of 12, maybe even more.
Can we just go through that real quick? So Jacksonville for sure.
Yes,
Jets maybe.
Atlanta
maybe. Philadelphia for sure.
Lions
if they trade Stafford for sure.
Panthers maybe. Right?
Panthers maybe. Denver, I think Denver.
They might keep Lock. They'll probably keep Lock one more year.
Okay, and then Dallas no, and Giants no.
I'm thinking Giants in. So I'm talking about if a quarterback falls. If there's a quarterback there, then that's where I'm going in. And then I include the Niners. I include the Niners only because if there's a quarterback there and how they evaluate. And so I would say maybe 4 teams definitely, and like up to 6 or 7 you include maybes. So I think in the first 10 or so picks, you're gonna have at least 3 quarterbacks. You're gonna have a couple linemen. You're gonna have probably 2 wide receivers. So every year, right? You have your top safety, your top corner, your top defensive ends. I've always been someone. This could be just status quo, but I've always been someone to think that your top defensive end player, the more stable chance of them producing than your top like other positions like corner or safety or maybe even wide receiver. I feel like defensive end stable position draft them high. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think so.
Um, and so if you're the Niners, I think that 43rd pick is sufficient for getting a solid choice at solid enough for safety and corner. Unless you're going to trade down, like you said, to get more second round picks and a higher first round. Sorry, I guess it's technically a lower first round pick, right? Lower is a worst first round pick, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Unless you're going to trade up or no, down, trade down, then you should pick the best defensive ends if he's good enough at that position. But if he's not there, because one of the mottos, philosophies, take the best player available. I only agree with that. A couple conditions are met. Don't have a major need, and two, it's sufficiently a good player, which may not be the case after like the first 5 picks. 12 is such a uh, position because if you're getting the best player available and it's not a player you really want or need, I don't think you go for that pick. I think you trade down.
I agree.
So get the best defensive end if he's there, or a good enough defensive end if he's there. But if there's not first talent defensive ends or first half talent defensive end available, trade down. So
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
um so all right. The Dolphins. I did not do I have a fair amount of things I want to say, but did not do as much Jeremy had there. So let me just go to their page right now.
That's okay. We
NFL.
won less games than you guys did, so I had to make up for some of that with analysis.
So the Dolphins were 10-6, which was much better than we expected. I think the season, I thought 7 wins was plausible. I thought 8 was kind of a good goal. The fact that we had a chance for 11, just that's really good, especially given our quarterback situation. So to Tua or not to Tua? That's the question. um, I do not have a problem if he's not as good as Watson. I don't think he'll but that's pretty hard. I mean, Watson's already like a top quarterback right now, and young career started very well. And yeah, so let's start with the Watson. We're gonna go for Watson. I thought about this earlier today because I mentioned which teams would be a good fit for Watson, and I actually kind of switched my view actually today, thinking more about it and considering what's better for Texans. So if we get Watson, we would have to give Texans obviously our 3rd pick. Ironically, their pick they gave us for Tunsil and other players. I think I don't know if it was just Tunsil or not. Doesn't matter. We'd have to give him our. I would say Watson would be worth our 1st round pick, probably both of our 1st round picks. But that's it. Or our 1st round pick and our early second, like maybe a second next year and Tua, right? Getting to give up Tua and both our 1st round picks is too much that they'd be asking for. But if we gave him Tua, our 3rd pick, and then 2nd round pick, then that'd be fair. Or a 2nd round pick next year, whatever.
So hold
I'm
on,
okay with
just sorry, real quick. You think that Tua? You think if you give Tua, you don't have to give 2 first-round picks?
Well, it's not necessarily. Well, Tua thing is less involved because you have to give them a quarterback. Basically. That's just kind of the part. But if we give him Tua and 2 first rounders, That feels high.
Really?
Let's see.
Okay. Okay.
Unless you throw in a second round pick for next year. I'll say this. Oh no! I said I was okay with that. I said didn't I say I was okay with that? I think what I said was more than that is I'm not okay with. Tua, did I forgot what I said. Which one did I? Do you remember what I said?
Well, I guess we can forget what you said. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you're saying Tua and either 2 first round picks or your third overall this year and maybe and a second and then maybe a first next year.
Or a second next year.
Or a second. Yeah, see here just as a frame of reference, because I think these types of trades are starting to get really expensive. Jamal Adams. So the Jets traded the Seahawks Jamal Adams for the Seahawks 23rd overall first round pick and next year's first round pick, and then I think like a 4th round or something.
Well, that's just stupid. That I'm trying. Yeah, that's just. I don't want to use that as a metric because I think that was just.
But I mean, I don't think I don't think any team, but especially not the Texans, are going to accept less than 2 first round picks for Watson.
I guess if they are wanting to use that to draft a quarterback with Tua, that's fair. No, that is fair. I agree. That's fair. Then I will answer, but I'll clarify more what I said. If we give them Tua and our first 2 round picks, I think more than that is starting to push the line. Can we agree on that? Like if they ask for Tua, our first 2 round picks, and our early second pick this year, I would start to feel like that's where it's like.
I would say that I agree that that's how it should be, but I don't know if I think that's how it will be perceived.
That's fair. That's fair. So the thing is, Dolphins, like that's good for the Dolphins, right? But I don't want to use the draft capital. I don't want to keep Tua. Here's my reasoning. Parker has to step up. Yes, it matters who's throwing to you. I get that. But Devontae Parker really does have the potential to be a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in this league consistently. And he just, I know he has the best quarterbacks, but I don't feel like it's all not on him or it's on other people. So if we draft a wide receiver, keep Tua, that would create great competition. And yeah, Parker is a good talent. And so I thought about for a second if we traded Parker, but Parker is actually, he already signed an extension. It's not super expensive. Like, we keep him, but he has to we need to have good chemistry with our quarterback and Parker, be a number 1 option. So if Watson came in, right, we would basically have no picks, really pick up some big needs. We gave them all to Houston. Okay, so we have an okay running game to get us there. Watson has a better offensive line, so he's not getting sacked so much. Watson has better receivers than he does with Texans, and Watson has a better defense than Texans. So that's good. I like that. But something, I don't know, man. Oh, that's great and all, but if it does cost us that much to get him, I don't know. I kind of want to see what happens. Because if we draft, right, and we build a better team around Tua, and Tua doesn't work, then there's always free agency or a crazy draft the next year. Here's the thing. If we build better pieces, we can easily do. I think we can meet all of our needs by the second round. I'm not kidding when I say this. We could probably just trade away all of our remaining picks. I think we have a 3rd, 5th, and 6th rounder, something like that. 3rd, 4th, 6th rounder. I think we can get all of our needs from the first 3 or 4 picks of the draft. And who cares about the rest? So we already have a good defense. And I would say probably a top when healthy receiving core. Then solidify the offensive line, get that top wide receiver. And if Tua doesn't work out, you have 2 options. Go for free agency or trade a bunch of picks to go crazy for the following quarterback in the next draft. because you won't need those picks to rebuild. So you've already in your rebuild phase and are now a good team, and all you need is the quarterback. So when all you need is a quarterback, you can be more dramatic in giving up future picks because you already have the team. The problem is usually when you have the quarterback or too many holes to fill on top of that, or when you need a quarterback in many other places, but like they're not super big needs, but you have a lot of things you want to get. The Dolphins are in a great position where don't get Watson. I mean, that'd be good, obviously. But if they don't get Watson, they're in a good position for the long term because they can do a lot this year's draft. And if Tua works out, great. If he doesn't, that's not really that big of a deal, in my opinion, for the next few years of the draft. So, because their needs, I looked it up and someone had said that their needs are wide receiver, inside linebacker, and offensive line. And I would have guessed on my own, I would have said offensive line and wide receiver. The offensive line improved. Drafted offensive line recently. I mean, yeah, our defensive line is good. Our secondary is great. So yeah, get a linebacker. And our run game could use improvement, but it's not atrocious. And I think it's enough. And as long as we have a good quarterback with weapons, then that's fine. So if we go out, draft in our third pick, to me, this is so easy. This is the only thing that's easier than the Dolphins pick at third is the Jaguars getting Trevor Lawrence. That's the only thing that's easier this draft. Pick the best receiver. There's two good receivers out there. There's two really good options outside of a major issue like an injury or something. I don't care which one we get. There's two great wide receivers out there, and then another third one who's really good as well. So pick one of the best receivers. It's that simple. Then we have the 18th pick in the draft. The 18th pick in the draft, more than plenty to get a good defensive end. A good offensive lineman, especially when this year seems to have, depending on which website you look at, there's about 5 to 7 offensive linemen projected in the first round. When you consider all the quarterbacks, other talent players picked before that 18th pick, you're going to get a good enough offensive lineman at 18. You just are. Or you can do what the Dolphins did last year, is at their higher first round pick, they reached to like second round goal and picked an offensive lineman higher, but it's not that big of a deal. Or you get your best linebacker. So you get the number one wide receiver for you, who you want, which just now creates competition for Parker. Great weapon to add for Tua. If Preston Williams comes back healthy, I think that might be one of the best 3 wide receivers in the league. And boom, then you fill another need at 18, and now you have an early second round pick and a middle second round pick. That is definitely enough to go out and get a solid linebacker. And then you still have a third round pick, and I think a 5th round pick if you need to go for more linebackers or like a extra running back or something. So the Dolphins don't have too many needs, and they can meet those needs by the second round and be a 10-win team with Tua, even if he's not that great next year. And then you reevaluate, trade him, you trade draft picks, go to free agency, and the Dolphins are in a great place to be a 12-win team in 2 years and be a legit contender. So that's what I'm actually kind of hoping for. I kind of want to see that process play out. And I think it's better for us long term. And it's kind of just more exciting, to be honest. That would probably be the greatest draft rebuild in NFL history over the last few years. You look at like a 3 to 5 year span and getting to the last picks, how we do that. I think that would be probably the greatest team rebuild through the draft in NFL history if the Dolphins can pull this off. So I'm kind of want to see them pull it off.
It only took you guys 6 years to decide that you were rebuilding.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you did, you rebuilt pretty quickly.
Yeah. So that's where I'm leaning towards. I have no opposition to Watson, but I kind of want to see us this draft route.
Yeah, the more you talk about it, I think it actually makes sense to say plug the needs with this year's abundance of really good high picks, and then next year you either, pay for somebody on the market, or you draft somebody and then basically just expend your 2022 and 2023 capital for someone. And because next year, you're probably not going to have a good pick, or a great pick anyway. Because presumably with that kind of talent, you guys will win it 10 games or more again. And then you'll kind of be sitting at you'll need to basically, if you wanted to either trade up in the draft or trade for someone that's available, then you would need to spend all of your about 2 years worth of capital for them. And I think that could work, right? If you got all the pieces already and all you're missing is a quarterback, that sounds fine to me. I mean, so yeah, no, I think you guys are in a very lucky position in that you can go either route and be successful, where a lot of teams, if they don't go the one correct route, then they're screwed.
Yeah, and I think that what was I gonna say here? Outside of injury or like temporary benching because of terrible performance, I think you have to play Tua the whole season. You need a full evaluation, and you have to play him the whole season.
Yeah, I'd agree. All right, so that wraps up our what's next for the 49ers and Dolphins segment. We did commentators say the darndest things already, so we're going to end our show with our conference championship weekend picks. Just real quick, Joseph was 3-1 on his picks last week. I was 2-2. I got the Ravens horribly wrong. So there's only 2 games to pick this week. So I'll do the NFC one first, and Joseph will do the AFC one first. So, actually, I'm sorry. We don't know the status of Patrick Mahomes. So let's talk about that in a second. Let's do the Bucks Packers first. So Bucks Packers, I'm going Packers.
Same.
Okay.
And Bills, Chiefs. I'm basically picking the winner's contingent on if Mahomes starts.
Same here.
So, yeah, we got the same picks, and if Mahomes is truly healthy, like him starting, the contingent for our picks, but not necessarily the result of the game. If he starts and he's not actually ready, but it's kind of just like a faux start. So if he starts, we're gonna pick the Chiefs. But if he starts and isn't ready, Bills can still win. But yeah, that is gonna be a good game. I do think the Bills will play better. Josh Allen will play better, but I just can't see them beating the Chiefs, especially at home. So
yeah, I think I'm going to be pretty disappointed if both teams don't score at least 27 points in this game.
Yeah, no, it should be a good one.
Assuming that Mahomes is healthy.
Yes.
Okay, well, so for next week we'll probably do a similar thing where we'll talk about both games. We might go in. Hopefully they'll be better. So the better they are, the more likely we are to go deeper into them. But we'll be prepared to go deeper into them. And we've got a couple of kind of interesting, fresh topics to talk about for our special segments these next couple of weeks as the season's wrapping up. We have a window to discuss broader NFL related things, and I'll give a tease that one of them has to do with the Hall of Fame. There is a chance, just as a forewarning, there is a chance that due to work commitments, I may not be able to do a show next week. But if I am not, I will make the announcement on Facebook, Twitter, all the applicable social media. And otherwise, if you don't hear from me, expect to see Joseph and I see with your ears next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. So that's a wrap for our episode tonight. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. The show is online immediately after we go live, so if you've missed any of our foolish banter, you can always rewind and start from the beginning. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Yep.